Hello, welcome back to Course Rep Training. In this section, we're going to look at writing up feedback. So that encompasses checking that the feedback you've collected is representative of your whole cohort and actually represents the opinion of a majority of students on your course, and also looks at ways in which you can present feedback to staff that will be well received by them and is diplomatic. So at this point, you've gone through different methods of collecting feedback, you've sent out an online survey, you've run a focus group, you've got all of your raw data essentially, and you're going to sort through this raw data to check that it is representative of your cohort and appropriate for the meeting that you're going to submit it to. And you can do this primarily through our ABCDEs checklist. So, is the feedback accurate and appropriate for the SSLG meeting you're going to take it to, or for Exeter? Is it appropriate for your action review meeting? Is the feedback balanced? Is the feedback constructive? Is it depersonalized? And is it evidenced? What does this mean in more detail? Well, accurate and appropriate essentially means is there enough detail to clearly explain what the issue or new idea is and what the impact is on students? So is it accurate in the sense of, does it actually represent what students are talking about? And you can demonstrate this in your feedback write-up by making sure you concisely explain the feedback. And if students don't give you very detailed feedback, if you look over your raw data that you've collected and think, I have no idea what students mean by this module is confusing, you can go back to students and go, why do you think this module is confusing? Give me a little bit more detail so I can explain it to staff. And appropriate basically means, is the feedback focused on topics relevant for Falmouth students, your SSLG meeting, or for Exeter students, is it relevant to the action plan review meeting? And that basically just means, does it focus on academic issues? Does it focus on issues on your course? You can use our feedback flowchart to check that the feedback you're raising is going to the right place, and we will look at that in the reporting, feedback, and closing the feedback loop section. So, is the feedback balanced? This basically means that the feedback you collect needs to be representative of as many students on your course as possible, and you can demonstrate this by explaining how you collected the feedback and how that makes it representative. So you might have run a focus group that only talks to 10 out of 60 students on your course. But if you explain that it was a focus group collecting detailed information, that shows staff the context in which this feedback was collected. And yes, if you survey people, say how many people filled in the survey. It's possible that you might survey students and only get 30 out of 60 students on your course to fill in the survey, but that still shows that you've made an effort to reach out to as many students on the course as possible. Your lecturers will empathise with this. They also have to collect feedback from students, and they know that there are some students who just don't engage with that sort of stuff and just don't give that information. So don't be afraid to be honest about how many students you reached out to. As long as you've tried your hardest to reach out to students, lecturers will be understanding. Being balanced also means that you try to understand the experiences of students from different backgrounds, and you should reach out to students on your course who you may not normally talk to. Don't just collect feedback from your friends on the course or the students who are studying the same modules as you, and so on and so forth. Make sure that if you're on a course where you can pick different modules or go down different pathways, you're checking in with students who aren't on the same pathway as you. Especially if none of the reps on the course are studying that pathway, it's good to make sure that those students' voices are being represented. And we also have a thing at the SU, we follow a diplomatic principle called majority rules, minority rights. So as I've said, you as a representative are supposed to represent the majority opinion of your course. That is the opinion you should focus on, because theoretically that's the most important opinion on the course. However, if you get feedback based on students' experience as an underrepresented group, for example, a small group of students, maybe there's 5 students on a course of 60 who have dyslexia and have mentioned to you they really struggle in the lectures because they can't read the information on the slides. Just because those 5 students are a minority on your course doesn't mean that feedback isn't appropriate, because it impacts their personal experience as disabled students. So it should still be reported and raised to staff. If you have any questions about that, please just get in touch with us at the SU. So, is the feedback constructive? Essentially, this means that your feedback should clearly show what any issues are, how staff can help, and also look at what's going well alongside what could be improved. So if students raise feedback that says, or if you submit feedback as a rep that says, this module on art history is badly organised, full stop. That's not constructive feedback, because lecturers don't know how to use that information to improve their course. If the feedback, however, says this module on art history is badly organised because students feel that this module is badly organised because they do not get the information on what they should read every week until the last minute, and lecturers aren't uploading information to the online learning space or ELI until it's too late. That's constructive feedback. Lecturers know how they can work on the issue. Okay, we need to check in with staff to make sure that they're uploading information on time each week, and so on and so forth. So yes, being constructive in your feedback is about being open to being part of the solution, telling lecturers, telling your course leads and your program leads what the issue is, but also how students would like them to improve the issue, / any suggestions that you have as the rep to improve the issue, or just simply saying, I'm not really sure how we can solve this issue at the moment, but I'm here if you need any support with contacting students or coming up with a solution, is showing that you're open to being part of the solution. And you can also be constructive by making sure you give a variety of feedback. So not just criticism, but also saying, we talked to students about what's going well, and they've said that these workshops are really strong and you should keep doing them, or that guest lecture was really interesting and they'd like that person to come back and do a workshop or run more lectures, etc., etc. So vary your feedback, don't just give complaints, and when you do give complaints, make sure that it's clear what the issue is and how staff can improve. Is the feedback depersonalized? Your feedback should not name individual students or staff. And when you are going through any raw data, you should remove any names of feedback or indications that it relates to an individual. If the feedback cannot be separated from a person, you should not take it to any formal meetings such as SSLGs for Falmouth students or action plan review meetings for Exeter students. This is because these meetings are formally minuted, and these minutes are accessed by loads of different people across the university. They should be accessed by students and so on and so forth. So it's unfair for people to name and shame individuals on a public platform. So in this example, if students are saying that a lecturer is always late to lectures, they're dismissive when students ask for help, and they never respond to emails, that is about a specific person's conduct. You can't separate it from that person. So you can talk to your course leader or your program lead privately about it in a one-to-one meeting and come up with a solution there. You also, as a rep, don't have to take feedback about an individual staff member to that person in question. That's a lot of pressure for you as a rep, and it's not a requirement. If you bring it to your program lead or your course lead, that staff member typically manages the person below them, so they can check in with them and make sure their performance is up to scratch. There may be times where you think this feedback is obviously about an individual. So if students are giving feedback on a module and about how a module maybe isn't working, you may think, well, this is obviously about the staff member who leads that module. As long as the feedback is phrased in a way that it's focused on the module itself and not the person, it is depersonalized. So we're not going, oh yeah, Professor Smith's module is really crap. We're going, this module on art history is a real struggle for students, and here's why. That's depersonalized. Even if an individual person is running that module, it's not about them. It's about the module itself and how to improve it. And equally, if you're worried about staff members getting upset because a module that they're running or a lecture series that they're running is being criticised, you can go back to making sure the feedback's constructive, emphasising how they can resolve issues, that you're open to helping them resolve these issues, and any positives you can find about that lecture series or that module, emphasise that to them as well, to make sure that they feel appreciated, as well as working on any issues that's coming up. And finally, is the feedback evidenced? You just need to provide any evidence that the feedback you collected is from your course cohort where you can, and not just your own personal opinion. So include statistics where appropriate. 24 out of 30 students surveyed said that. Include quotes from students that they've left to demonstrate what the issue is from their perspective. And just give as much detail as possible in terms of showing that you collected this feedback from other people rather than just giving your own opinion. So that's how you can check that the feedback you're giving is representative and appropriate to present to staff members. Other ways you can present feedback to staff. So make sure that when you're giving feedback, you're timely in giving that feedback, which essentially means if you receive feedback, for example, that students don't know how to submit to an assessment that's in a week's time, don't save that feedback for when you're having a formal meeting in 2 weeks' time. Raise it with a staff member as soon as possible to give them enough time to think about how to solve the issue before the issue needs to be resolved. That applies to most things, really. So even with your formal meetings like SSLGs or action plan review meetings, the sooner you submit feedback to those meetings, the more time staff have to consider the feedback and think of ways to resolve it, which is just respectful on their time, because lecturers and your course leads and your program leads are busy people, and they have other things to be doing. So if you're timely in your submission of feedback, that gives them time to schedule looking at your feedback into their day. Be specific and concise. We've already said that your feedback should be accurate and appropriate, but this reinforces that you should really explain what the issue is and why, to avoid any confusion. Because if people aren't confused, they can't get defensive. Whereas if you're unclear about what the issue is, staff members may get defensive about resolving the issue. Be polite and respectful, which is fairly obvious, but within that, we talk about using or avoiding using emotive language. So rather than saying students hate this module, talk about what it is that makes them hate it. So maybe they hate the module because it's unorganized and they are worried about how to submit to their assessment. So instead of saying students hate this module, you say students are finding this module unorganized and are worried about how to submit to the assessment. Focus on the objective facts rather than the emotions that students are feeling. Offer suggestions and be part of the solution. As I said earlier, it's a great way to keep your feedback constructive if you show that you want to be part of the solution. And give positive feedback too, and new ideas. Get involved in the process. There's more detail on our website under feedback on the Rep Hub as to how you can present feedback to staff in a diplomatic way. This is just a quick overview that I'm giving you so that you're aware that this advice exists. So that concludes our section on writing up feedback. The next section we'll look at is reporting feedback and closing the feedback loop.